The stars shone bright in the sky above Earth as a strange, calm quiet settled over the planet. For centuries, humanity had looked up, dreaming of the stars and wondering if anyone else shared the universe. Little did they know, the answer was closer than they ever imagined. The moment had come. The Galactic Council, an ancient and powerful alliance of alien species, had finally extended an offer to Earth. An offer that could change the fate of humanity forever. Captain Elena Vasquez, a leader in Earth's military and one of the few chosen to represent humanity, sat nervously in a dimly lit room at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The entire world was watching, as the most important decision in human history was about to unfold. Outside, the air was thick with anticipation. News outlets, social media, and even ordinary citizens eagerly awaited the first contact with beings far more advanced than anything humanity had ever known. For weeks, Earth's governments had debated the offer, with experts from various fields discussing the implications. The Galactic Council, it was said, consisted of species that had evolved far beyond Earth. They controlled massive fleets of ships, manipulated energy in ways Earth's scientists could only dream of, and were rumored to have knowledge of the universe's deepest secrets. This offer, which had been extended through encrypted communications, promised humanity incredible technological advancements, military protection, and a chance to join a galactic network that spanned across the stars. But there was a catch. Always a catch. The emissaries from the Galactic Council were set to land soon. The world's leaders had been briefed, and Earth's most brilliant minds had been assembled to guide the decision. The question wasn't about whether to accept or reject the offer. It was about what accepting truly meant. Elena, like many others, felt the weight of this decision pressing down on her shoulders. Would Earth become part of a larger galaxy, or would they remain independent, keeping their freedom at any cost? As the clock ticked down, Elena was called into the meeting room. The leaders of the world and representatives from various scientific communities were already seated, awaiting her arrival. The room was filled with nervous energy, but Elena maintained her composure. She had been chosen for this task, not because she was the most politically powerful, but because she understood the heart of humanity, its strength, its desire for independence, and its determination to survive. The doors opened, and two figures stepped forward, tall, imposing beings with sleek, metallic armor that gleamed even under the dim lighting. Their faces were covered with a dark visor, their features completely hidden. They exuded an air of otherworldly power, as if they were not just visitors from another world, but the very embodiment of the universe itself. They were emissaries from the Galactic Council, representatives of species that had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. One of the beings, its voice deep and resonant, addressed the assembly. "We come in peace, humanity," it said, the words translated perfectly into every language spoken on Earth. "We have watched your planet for centuries. You have shown great promise, but you are at a crossroads. Your species has reached a point where you can either ascend to greatness or remain stagnant in a cycle of destruction. We offer you the path to a new era." Elena glanced around the room. Some of the leaders seemed captivated by the aliens' words. A few even nodded in agreement, clearly excited about the possibility of joining this cosmic alliance. Others, however, looked uneasy, their faces filled with doubt. Elena, herself, could not shake the feeling that there was more to this offer than met the eye. The emissary continued, its tone unwavering. "With our assistance, you will gain access to technologies that will eliminate poverty, end disease, and solve the energy crisis on your world. We can offer you military protection from threats you cannot yet comprehend. The Galactic Council has no interest in conquest. We simply seek to help those who are worthy of our knowledge." The words were tempting. Elena had seen the evidence, the advancements in energy, medicine, and even artificial intelligence that the Galactic Council had shared in their communications. Some of Earth's brightest scientists were already working on translating alien technology into usable forms. The potential was limitless. But as Elena looked into the emissary's visor, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. The offer was too perfect, too polished. Why had the Galactic Council waited until now to extend an invitation? Why had they watched for so long, only to offer help when humanity was on the verge of making its own breakthroughs? And what price would Earth have to pay for these gifts? Elena's thoughts were interrupted when the other emissary, silent until now, spoke. Its voice was softer, almost soothing, but still carried the same authority. "We understand your hesitation," it said. "You are not the first species to question our intentions. But know this, the galaxy is vast, and it is filled with dangers that you are not yet equipped to face. Alone, Earth will struggle to survive. Together, however, we can forge a future unlike any other." The room fell silent. The decision was no longer just about technological advancements. It was about trust. Trust in the Galactic Council, trust in their promise, and trust in humanity's ability to make the right choice. Elena could feel the weight of the moment, the eyes of the world on her. The fate of Earth rested on her shoulders. The room was tense, waiting for her response. The emissaries stood still, their faces unreadable beneath their visors. After what felt like an eternity, Elena stood up, her voice steady. "We appreciate your offer," she said, her words measured. "But we need time to consider. Humanity cannot make a decision like this lightly. We must ensure that any choice we make will benefit our future and not tie us to a path we cannot escape." The emissaries stood still, unmoving. They were silent for a long moment before the first one spoke again, its voice colder now. "Very well. You will have time. But understand this. Time is a luxury. The galaxy does not wait." With that, the emissaries turned and left the room, leaving behind a tension that hung heavy in the air. Earth's leaders exchanged uncertain glances, unsure of what to make of the encounter. Elena couldn't shake the feeling that the Council's offer had set something in motion that could never be undone. The moment had passed. But what came next? Only time would tell. The moment of uncertainty lingered long after the emissaries left the room. As Earth's leaders exchanged glances, the gravity of the situation sank in. Captain Elena Vasquez knew that this was no ordinary diplomatic negotiation. This was a test not just of Earth's readiness to join the Galactic Council, but of humanity's very identity. The room buzzed with a mix of excitement and fear as everyone debated the implications of the offer. Elena could feel the pressure mounting. Some of the world's most powerful leaders were eager to accept the proposal, believing that the promise of advanced technology and military protection could propel Earth into a new era of prosperity. They argued that it was an opportunity humanity couldn't afford to ignore. After all, the Council had not come to Earth with a military threat, but with a promise of peace. Why reject it? Why question it? But Elena's instincts told her something wasn't right. She had spent her life fighting for Earth's independence, striving to protect it from outside forces. She couldn't ignore the nagging doubt that had settled in her mind. The Galactic Council was powerful, yes, but what did they really want from Earth? The offer seemed too good to be true, and Elena wasn't sure humanity should rush into a deal with an unknown, vast, and ancient empire. What price would Earth have to pay for that kind of power? In the days that followed, Earth's governments tried to put together a response. Elena sat at the table with the world's leading experts, scientists, military strategists, and diplomats, discussing the pros and cons of accepting the Galactic Council's offer. On one hand, joining the Council promised security, technology that could solve Earth's most pressing problems, and an alliance with species that could defend humanity from any galactic threat. On the other hand, there was the fear of losing Earth's autonomy. What would it mean to be part of a galactic empire? Would humanity still have control over its destiny, or would it become just another pawn in a game played by ancient powerful beings? The more Elena thought about it, the more she felt the weight of the decision. Earth had always been a young, rebellious planet, full of hope and potential, but also brimming with flaws and conflict. Could humanity really integrate into such a vast galactic society without losing its soul? What if the Galactic Council's promises were nothing more than a means to control Earth's future? Belinda's mind raced, searching for answers that didn't seem to come. Meanwhile, reports from around the world started trickling in. Nations and governments that were eager to embrace the offer had already begun making plans, while others, more cautious, argued for delay. Some of Earth's most powerful military leaders had already discussed how Earth's forces could align with the Galactic Council, even going so far as to suggest joint operations with the alien species. But Alina knew it wouldn't be that simple. Trust couldn't be built in a day, and the Council's cryptic message, "Time is a luxury," lingered in her mind. Late one night, as Elena sat alone in her office, trying to make sense of everything, a sudden communication interrupted her thoughts. A private message from the United Nations top-secret division, an encrypted message that only a few individuals on Earth were privy to. It was a report from a satellite that had recently been launched to monitor the Council's movements. The data it had collected was staggering. As Elena scanned the report, her heart sank. There were signs of something much bigger, much darker than they had been led to believe. The Galactic Council's offer might not have been as innocent as it appeared. Earth had been observed, yes, but not just by the Council. There were others, factions within the galaxy who had interests in Earth's future. Some of them were not as peaceful as the Council claimed to be. She knew then that she could no longer simply rely on the surface-level promises of peace and prosperity. The universe was vast, and the Council was not the only player. There were forces, hidden, shadowy, and perhaps even more dangerous, who had been watching Earth for far longer than anyone knew. The pressure to make a decision became unbearable. Belina knew time was running out. The Council would not wait forever, and Earth's leadership was becoming more divided by the day. There were those pushing for immediate acceptance, eager for the benefits that came with membership, and those who feared that even the smallest step toward submission would lead to irreversible consequences. In the end, Alina knew that the decision couldn't be made by just one person, no matter how powerful or influential. The world would need to come together to decide whether Earth would bow to the will of the Galactic Council or stand alone, facing whatever dangers awaited them in the stars. But for now, the Council's emissaries had returned to their ships, and Earth was left with the uncomfortable reality of having to decide whether or not to take that next step. Alina's mind raced with possibilities. Could they survive without the Council's protection? What would the universe think of Earth's refusal? She had no answers, only a deepening sense of unease. The Galactic Council had made its offer, and now Earth had to decide. Accept the galaxy's help or risk everything by choosing a path of uncertainty. The future of humanity hung in the balance, and Elena wasn't sure which path was the right one. The days that followed Earth's rejection of the Galactic Council's offer were filled with tension and uncertainty. As world leaders debated their next move, Earth's military began preparing for potential retaliation, though no one knew exactly what form it would take. Alina sat in a secure conference room with the world's top military officials, strategists, and diplomats, each contributing their opinions on how best to handle the situation. But despite all the planning and preparation, one question loomed large. What would the Council do next? In the halls of power, the weight of the decision seemed to settle on everyone. Many governments had been quick to voice their support for the Galactic Council's offer, while others, more cautious, had voiced their concerns. But no one had expected the consequences to unfold so quickly. It didn't take long for the first signs of retaliation to emerge. Communications from Earth's satellites began to fail. First, it was the communication network in Europe. Then it spread to Asia, then to the Americas. Every time Earth scientists tried to track down the source, the signals would disappear, only to resurface elsewhere. It was as if someone, or something, was deliberately jamming Earth's communication systems. Soon after, strange disruptions began appearing in the skies. UFOs, sleek and silent, started showing up near key military bases around the world. They were not attacking, but their presence alone was enough to raise alarms. The ships moved in perfect formation, hovering for hours, observing, but never striking. Yet, the threat they posed was undeniable. These vessels were not of Earth's making, and they were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Some believed them to be ships belonging to the Galactic Council itself, while others suspected they were part of a darker force, operating in the shadows. Captain Elena Vasquez's phone buzzed in her hand. It was a secure call from the Pentagon. "We have a situation," the voice on the other end said. "A fleet of unknown ships has appeared on the edge of Earth's orbit. They're not attacking, but they're not responding to any communications. What do we do?" Elena's gut tightened. She had hoped for a peaceful resolution, but the evidence before her now pointed to a different reality. "Keep the lines open, and make sure our defenses are on high alert," she instructed, trying to mask the fear in her voice. "We need to figure out who these ships belong to." That night, the first attack came. A powerful electromagnetic pulse, unlike anything Earth had experienced before, tore through the planet's grid. The pulse hit hard, first knocking out power across entire continents, then shutting down critical military systems and communication satellites. For hours, the world was plunged into darkness, and panic swept through cities. For the first time in decades, humanity was completely vulnerable. It wasn't just an attack, it was a message. By morning, the power began to return, but the damage was already done. Earth's forces scrambled to repair communications and restore order. But Elena knew the real damage had been done elsewhere. The Galactic Council had made its move. And now, there were even darker signs on the horizon. Military intelligence began to pour in from around the world. Strange signals were detected on long-range scans, signals that didn't belong to any known species. The pattern was unmistakable. Earth had not just been targeted by the Galactic Council. Something much older, more dangerous, was now involved. Elena called an emergency meeting with the United Nations Security Council. The room was filled with tense, worried faces. "We have to prepare for the worst," Elena said, her voice firm, though she could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing on her chest. "Whoever is behind this is not going to stop until we're crippled. The Galactic Council might be watching, but we're dealing with something much darker." The Council had given its warning. Time was a luxury. The consequences of rejecting them were now becoming all too real. But it was at that moment, when the world seemed on the brink of collapse, that an unexpected piece of information arrived. Earth's best scientists had been working on a way to detect and communicate with alien signals. Their efforts had been focused on the Galactic Council, but in the midst of the attacks, they had discovered something new. An encrypted transmission that didn't match anything the Council had sent. It was from an unknown source, a force that Earth had never encountered before. The message was short, direct, and chilling. "You were never meant to survive." The words hung heavy in the air, sending a wave of dread through the room. Elena's heart raced as she processed the meaning behind the message. The Galactic Council might have been involved, but this was something else entirely. The Council's rejection was only part of a much larger game, one that Earth had unknowingly stepped into. The world was facing not just the consequences of rejecting an offer. It was now in the crossfire of a war between forces far beyond its understanding. Elena stood before the Council, a wave of determination sweeping over her. "We need to make our next move," she said. "Whoever sent that message is not just threatening us. They're trying to destroy us. We can't wait for help from the Galactic Council. We need to find out who's really behind this, and we need to stop them before it's too late." The room was silent. No one spoke for a long moment, as the weight of the decision hung over them all. The future of Earth was uncertain, and the stakes had never been higher. The galaxy was a vast, dangerous place, and humanity had just become a pawn in a much larger game. Elena knew this was only the beginning. As the situation on Earth escalated, The weight of the world seemed to press down on every leader, every citizen, and every soldier. The mysterious ships in orbit continued their silent observation, neither retreating nor advancing. No one knew who was controlling them, but their presence was a constant reminder that humanity was not alone in the universe. Even though communication had been restored after the electromagnetic pulse, the message that had arrived, "You were never meant to survive," echoed through Alina's mind. The message was clear. The Galactic Council might have offered humanity an alliance, but they were not the only force in play. There were others, darker and more powerful, who had not only seen Earth as a target, but as a potential threat that needed to be neutralized. Alina knew that humanity's rejection of the Council had put them squarely in the crosshairs of these unknown forces. But the question was, who were they, and what did they want? The scientists back on Earth have been working feverishly to analyze the strange transmissions, but the answers they were hoping for didn't come quickly. The signals were encrypted, sophisticated beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. Whatever force was behind the message knew how to stay hidden. Yet, they were powerful enough to disrupt Earth's technology and send an unmistakable threat. Alina gathered the world's military leaders, along with key strategists and diplomats, in an effort to formulate a plan. The room was tense, with every seat filled by individuals who understood that the choices they made could either ensure humanity's survival or doom it to destruction. They had to act quickly, but no one knew where to begin. "We need to know who our enemies are," Alina said, her voice unwavering but full of determination. "And we need to know what they want. We can't fight a shadow." A military strategist spoke up. "We've been tracking the unknown fleet. Their movements seem calculated. They've never attacked. They've only observed. But we've detected anomalies in their energy signatures. They're clearly not using the same technology as the Galactic Council. This could mean we're dealing with a completely different group." Alina nodded, her mind racing. The Council, while undeniably powerful, had offered peace. But whoever was behind this new threat wasn't interested in negotiation. They had only one goal: Earth's destruction. The question that lingered in Alina's mind was why. Why had Earth, a young, relatively primitive planet, suddenly attracted such attention from forces beyond its comprehension? As the meeting wore on, the pressure to make a decision grew more urgent. Earth's military was already on high alert, but without knowing who was truly behind the attack, how could they defend themselves effectively? A global alliance would be needed to withstand an assault from such an advanced force. Yet even as they discussed potential strategies, there was a growing sense of unease. Earth's people were not ready for the war that loomed on the horizon. Technology, weapons, and defenses had always been Earth's weakest point compared to the vast powers of the universe. They had never been part of the galactic conversation until now. How could they hope to survive against enemies that were light years ahead? Just as Alina was about to speak again, another report came through from the military's reconnaissance teams. The signals from the mysterious ships in orbit had shifted. They were no longer simply observing. They were actively blocking Earth's satellites from scanning them. Earth's best technologies could no longer get a clear read on their power or intentions. It was a significant escalation. The implications were chilling. It wasn't just about watching anymore. This enemy was preparing for something. But what? Then came the next blow. A covert operation in the Pacific Ocean had detected large underwater structures. Vast, almost ancient-looking facilities that hadn't been on any of Earth's maps. They seemed to have appeared overnight, deep below the ocean's surface. And then, there were the energy readings. Deep, powerful bursts of energy coming from beneath the waves, similar to the disturbances that had been occurring in Earth's skies, but on a much larger scale. Alina's mind clicked into overdrive. She had a growing suspicion that the enemy wasn't just above them. It was already among them. There were ancient alien ruins buried deep within Earth's oceans, remnants from a time before humanity even existed. Was it possible that these forces weren't just coming from the stars, but that they had already infiltrated Earth, waiting for the right moment to strike. This theory began to take shape as Alina pored over the reports. These underwater structures didn't just look alien. They looked old, older than the Galactic Council itself. Could Earth have been the site of an ancient conflict that humans had no memory of? An ancient war between galactic empires, with Earth caught in the crossfire. The stakes were higher than ever before, and Alina knew time was running out. With each passing day, the pressure from the unknown forces increased, and Earth was no closer to understanding who they were up against. But one thing was clear: the Galactic Council's offer was no longer the only game in town. Earth was now a pawn in a much larger war. A war between galactic empires that had been fought for eons. The decision loomed heavy before them. Earth's leaders had a choice. They could reach out to the Galactic Council, asking for their aid. But would the Council help them? Or would they simply stand by and watch as humanity faced its extinction? Or, perhaps, Earth's only hope was to confront this enemy head-on, relying on its ingenuity and determination to survive against forces far beyond their understanding. But in Alina's heart, a sinking feeling grew. No matter how much humanity fought, no matter how strong their resolve, the universe was a vast, dangerous place. And Earth was no longer alone in the game of survival. The real question was, who would decide Earth's fate? The unknown forces looming in the shadows, or the Galactic Council who had watched from afar? As the room fell into silence, Alina realized that whatever choice they made, it would shape the future of humanity for centuries to come. And as the stars above them shimmered in the dark night, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The situation on Earth grew more precarious with each passing hour. Alina stood on the balcony of her command center, overlooking the bustling city below. The streets were quieter than they had ever been, as if the world itself was holding its breath. People were unsure of what was coming next, and fear had begun to seep into every corner of the globe. The strange, powerful fleet still hovered in Earth's orbit, blocking all attempts to communicate with them. The underwater structures were an unsettling mystery, their sheer size and age suggesting a connection to a power beyond even the Galactic Council. Alina's mind raced as she tried to piece together the fragments of information. The enemy's intentions were still unclear, but one thing had become certain. Earth was facing a force unlike anything humanity had encountered before. While the Galactic Council's emissaries had offered protection and technology, it seemed that the Council's promise of peace was now meaningless in the face of this greater threat. And what terrified Alina the most was the possibility that the Council itself might be hiding something. Perhaps they knew about this darker force and had kept it a secret. The decision now weighed heavily on the shoulders of Earth's leaders. They had no choice but to respond, but how? Should they continue to refuse the Council's offer and stand alone, fighting this shadowy enemy without help? Or should they turn to the Council, swallowing their pride and hope that the Council would truly offer the assistance they needed? The uncertainty gnawed at Alina. She had always been a strong advocate for Earth's independence, but this wasn't about pride anymore. This was about survival. Earth had become a pawn in a much larger game. The time for diplomacy had passed. Now it was about choosing a side. And no matter what choice they made, there would be consequences. Alina turned away from the balcony and walked back into the meeting room. The leaders of Earth's most powerful nations had gathered again, and the tension in the room was palpable. The question now was simple. How would they respond to this unknown enemy that was threatening to tear their world apart? "We have to act," Alina began, her voice steady but firm. "Whatever is out there, they've made their move. The question is, how do we fight back?" The room was silent. Every eye was on her, waiting for the next step, waiting for a solution. Earth's military leaders were in agreement that an all-out attack against the unknown enemy could be disastrous, but they also knew they couldn't just sit back and wait for the enemy to strike first. There were no easy answers. A voice spoke up from the far end of the table. It was the head of Earth's largest military division. "We can't defeat them with just conventional weapons. The electromagnetic pulse alone shows they can disrupt our systems. We need to think beyond traditional methods of warfare. Whatever these enemies are, they're not just more advanced. They're smarter. We need something unexpected, something they won't see coming. Alina nodded thoughtfully. The key to winning this fight wasn't in brute strength. It was in innovation, strategy, and understanding the unknown. She turned to the scientific advisors in the room. "What if this isn't just a war of technology?" she asked, her voice low but urgent. "What if they're not attacking us because of our strength or our resources, but because we're a threat to something they're protecting?" One of the top scientists in the room spoke up. "You may be right. It's possible that Earth, in some way, has become the focal point of a much older conflict, something that predates humanity's understanding of the galaxy. There could be ancient reasons for why these forces are targeting Earth." Alina felt a chill run down her spine. "Ancient reasons," she repeated. "What do you mean?" The scientist took a deep breath, glancing around the room before continuing. "There are records of ancient civilizations, from long before Earth's history, that speak of a conflict, one that involved powerful galactic empires. These empires fought over planets, over resources, over ancient technologies. Earth might be standing on top of something valuable, that these forces are willing to kill for." The room was silent again as everyone processed the possibility. Earth, it seemed, was not just a target because of its population, its technology, or its resources. It was valuable for something much deeper, something buried beneath its surface or hidden in its history, something that no one, not even Earth's own leaders, truly understood. The stakes had risen even higher. This was no longer just about rejecting a galactic offer. It was about protecting Earth from forces that had been watching it for far longer than humanity had even existed. These ancient powers weren't just interested in Earth's future. They were determined to control its past. Alina stood up, her thoughts racing. The pieces were falling into place, but the puzzle was far from complete. "We need to find out what they want," she said, her voice decisive. "We need to figure out what's on this planet, something that's been here for longer than any of us know." A plan began to form in her mind. The underwater structures, the strange energy pulses, the cryptic message, all of it pointed to one thing. Earth was the key. It was a key to something much larger, something far older than the Galactic Council and the mysterious enemy that threatened to destroy them. The question was no longer if humanity would survive, but whether they could uncover the truth before it was too late. With determination, Alina looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each leader. "We'll take the fight to them," she said, a spark of resolve igniting in her chest. "We're not just fighting to survive. We're fighting to protect everything Earth stands for, and to uncover the secrets hidden beneath our feet." The room erupted into conversation as plans began to form, but Alina knew they had a long, hard road ahead of them. As much as humanity had progressed, they were still a young species in the eyes of the galaxy. And now, Earth would have to face its greatest challenge yet, a war for survival, for knowledge, and for the future of the human race. Time was running out. The next move had to be made, and it would determine whether humanity would rise to become a powerful force in the galaxy or fall to the shadows lurking in the stars. The fate of Earth and its place in the galaxy was at stake, and Alina was ready to fight for it. The following days were a blur of activity as Earth's leaders and military forces worked around the clock to prepare for the worst. The discovery of ancient underwater structures and the encrypted message had only heightened the urgency of their situation. Alina felt the weight of the world on her shoulders as she coordinated the global response to the growing threat. Every decision was critical, and the pressure was relentless. The first step was securing the ancient sites deep beneath the oceans. Alina had ordered an elite task force of Navy SEALs, scientists, and engineers to begin exploring the submerged structures. They needed to uncover whatever secrets lay hidden there before the unknown enemy could get to them first. If the rumors of ancient technologies and weapons were true, Earth's survival might depend on what they found. The task force was equipped with the best technology humanity had to offer. They used deep-sea drones, remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and submersibles to explore the ocean depths. The team reported strange energy readings coming from the structures, but they couldn't explain what was powering them. The longer they explored, the more it became clear that this was no ordinary discovery. It was a relic from an ancient war, one that had likely been buried for millennia. Meanwhile, the sky above Earth remained dark with the presence of the mysterious ships. They still refused to engage with Earth's forces, neither attacking nor leaving. It was a strange and unnerving standoff. No one knew their intentions, but the silence was louder than any words could be. As Earth's military forces tightened their security around key locations and critical infrastructure, Alina began to feel a rising sense of dread. She knew that the first strike could come at any moment, and when it did, humanity had to be ready. In the midst of these preparations, Alina convened another meeting with the world's leaders. The atmosphere in the room was tense, with everyone aware that time was running out. "We need answers," Alina said, her voice calm but firm. "The underwater sites are important, but we can't wait forever. We don't know how much time we have. We have to assume that these unknown forces have the means to strike at any moment. We need a way to communicate with them, to understand why they're here and what they want from us." A United Nations diplomat spoke up. "We've tried every communication method we have. Our best minds have been working on decrypting the signals, but so far, nothing has worked. The enemy seems to be blocking our efforts at every turn." "I agree," said the leader of Earth's military command. "It's almost as if they want us to remain in the dark. They're watching us, but they're not giving us any reason to understand their motives." Alina nodded thoughtfully. "If we can't communicate with them, then we need to do what we've always done. Adapt. We've been forced to learn, to evolve. And now, we have no choice but to take the fight to them. It's the only way we'll survive." The room fell silent as Alina's words sank in. Humanity was on the edge of something bigger than anyone could have imagined. The decision was clear. Earth would no longer sit idly by. They had to confront the forces that were bearing down on them, and they had to do it now. The next phase of their plan was set into motion. Earth's combined military forces would launch a coordinated strike on the fleet above them. It wasn't going to be a direct assault. At least, not yet. Instead, they would attempt to create a distraction, a temporary opening in the enemy's defense, long enough to send a small, highly specialized team to the center of the fleet to gather intelligence. It was a risky move, and the chances of success were slim. But Earth had no choice but to take that risk. "We'll need to use every resource we have," Alina said as she addressed the military leaders. "Every satellite, every communication device, every weapon. We're going to launch everything we got at their defenses and hope it's enough to get our team inside." A naval commander, his face set with resolve, spoke next. "We've been tracking their ships' movements. We believe there's a weak point in their formation, an area where the fleet seems to be spread thinner than the rest. If we time it right, we can hit that weak point and force their defenses to break." Alina nodded. "Then it's settled. We strike when they least expect it." The military began its preparations, and Earth's most elite special forces were put on standby. Alina knew it would be a dangerous mission, but it was their only chance to gather the intelligence they needed to make an informed decision about what to do next. If they failed, Earth would be left even more vulnerable than before. As the time for the mission drew near, Alina found herself standing alone in the command center, staring out at the stars. She couldn't help but wonder how humanity had come to this point. Just a few short years ago, they had been a quiet planet, unaware of the vast galactic web of power, politics, and ancient wars that surrounded them. Now, Earth was a battleground, and humanity had been thrust into the heart of it all. She thought about the words from the encrypted message. "You were never meant to survive." It echoed in her mind like a grim warning. Alina didn't know if they would be able to uncover the truth or if the coming battle would be their last. But one thing was certain: humanity would fight until the very end. The mission was set to launch at dawn. Earth's combined forces would take their shot, and for the first time in history, humanity would directly challenge the unknown forces that sought to destroy them. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Elena stood tall, her resolve as unshakable as ever. The fight for Earth had begun, and there was no turning back. The question now was, could humanity stand up to the darkness that had been waiting for them in the shadows of the galaxy?